I never thought marriage would come down to silence in the bedroom. I understood that passion doesn't stay at a constant high forever. Life has its weight. Work deadlines, bills, errands, exhaustion. But I always believed there would be at least some spark left to hold on to. My name's Michael. I'm 42 years old, and I've been married to Laura for nearly 15 years. For most of that time, I convinced myself that we were fine. But fine has a way of crumbling when you look too closely. The first years with Laura were filled with laughter, road trips, spontaneous nights out. She was fiery, quick-witted, always teasing me in a way that made me feel both challenged and cherished. Even after we settled into routine, we still had our moments. Little touches in the kitchen, long kisses before bed. Then, slowly, those touches started to vanish. First, I brushed it off. Maybe she was tired. Maybe the stress from teaching at the high school was draining her energy. I didn't complain. I took care of the chores, handled the yard, tried to give her space. But months turned into years, and the intimacy that once bound us together disappeared completely. I tried talking about it carefully, not wanting to come across as demanding or ungrateful. One evening, I told her, "I miss being close to you. I miss feeling like us." She sighed, avoided my eyes, and muttered, "I just don't get those feelings anymore. I don't get turned on." Her words hit like a punch I hadn't braced for. I sat there, stunned, unsure how to respond. My wife wasn't angry or cruel. She was simply cold, matter-of-fact, as if telling me we were out of coffee. Before I could gather my thoughts, another voice entered the room. The kitchen door swung open, and her younger sister, Chloe, stepped inside. She must have overheard us. With a half-smile that didn't reach her eyes, she looked directly at me and said, almost taunting, "Then maybe let me handle it." I froze, my heart slamming in my chest. I blinked, certain I had misheard her. Chloe was only 28, a stark contrast to Laura's measured calm. Where my wife had grown detached, Chloe carried herself with boldness, often unfiltered in what she said. But this wasn't just blunt, it was dangerous. "Chloe, that's not funny," Laura snapped, finally meeting her sister's eyes. "You don't just barge in and say something like that." But Chloe didn't back down. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her gaze steady on me. "I'm just saying what everyone's already thinking. If you're not giving him what he needs, don't act surprised when he looks elsewhere." The words echoed in the room like shrapnel. I glanced at Laura, expecting her to laugh it off, maybe scold Chloe more sharply. Instead, she shifted uncomfortably, her lips pressed into a thin line, offering no defense. In that silence, I felt something fracture. I had spent years excusing Laura's indifference, convincing myself that love was about patience, about weathering the dry spells. But Chloe's cruel observation stripped the situation bare. It wasn't just a phase. Laura had decided she was done with intimacy with me, and I had been too afraid to admit it. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Laura's eyes widened, not in guilt, but in irritation, like I was making a scene. "Michael, don't start," she muttered, almost under her breath. But my chest was burning. I turned toward the hallway, my pulse loud in my ears. Behind me, Chloe's voice cut through the tension again, softer this time, as if aimed only at me. "Hey, wait," she said. Something in her tone made me pause. Not mocking this time, not sharp, almost concerned. I didn't look back. Couldn't. My entire body felt caught between anger, humiliation, and a strange flicker of temptation I hated myself for feeling. I walked out onto the porch, the night air sharp against my skin. For the first time in 15 years, I realized I wasn't just married to Laura. I was trapped in a version of myself that no longer existed. And Chloe, with one reckless sentence, had forced me to see it. I stood outside, staring at the dark street, my breath forming small clouds in the cool air. For years, I had ignored the gnawing emptiness, telling myself this was marriage. Steady, reliable, safe. But what is safety when it feels like slow suffocation? The door creaked open behind me. Light spilled onto the porch and Chloe stepped out, She hesitated before speaking, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Michael, I wasn't trying to make things worse in there, she said. But you can't keep living like this. You deserve better than being treated like a roommate. I didn't answer. My mind replayed Laura's flat words on a loop. I don't get those feelings anymore. Finally, I said, she's my wife. 15 years. You don't just walk away from that. Chloe gave a small, almost sad laugh. 15 years doesn't mean much if she checked out 5 years ago. I turned, meeting her eyes for the first time that night. There was no flirtation in them now, only honesty. And for a moment I hated how right she was. Inside, I could hear Laura moving dishes, as if nothing monumental had just been said. That was her way, avoid, minimize, bury. But I couldn't bury it anymore. Chloe, I said carefully, whatever you meant earlier, don't. This isn't about you. It's about me finally deciding if I'm going to keep living in denial. She nodded, folding her arms against the cold. Fair enough. But if you decide to stay, don't complain when the loneliness eats you alive. Her words stung because they carried the truth I had been too proud to admit. I went back inside, the warmth of the house suddenly suffocating. Laura looked up from the sink, annoyance flickering across her face. Are you done? She asked, like I'd been throwing a tantrum. Something in me broke cleanly in that moment. Not with rage, but with clarity. No, I said firmly. I'm done pretending. Her brows knit in confusion, but I didn't wait for the argument that would follow. I walked past her into the bedroom and began pulling out a suitcase. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for Laura's permission, her excuses, or her scraps of affection. I was choosing myself. And maybe, just maybe, that was the only way to find the love I had been starving for.